Hi there, my name is Laura and I am one of Sue's old colleagues now that she's moved on, and friends, and it's great for me to be able to send in this little video answering some of the questions that Sue has sent me around your evening about fashion. My name is Laura, I work for Tear Fund. I also do a lot of campaigning and things in the environmental space outside of my work at Tear Fund as well. And I am going to answer these kind of 4 questions that Sue has sent to help shape your evening. And so I'm going to read them from my screen and then hopefully answer them with you all together. So Sue has asked the first question, which is, as well as having worked together at Tear Fund, you also go by Less Waste Laura on social media. Can you tell me about that and what you do and why? So when I was at university studying geography and environmental science, I really felt like I was learning a lot about the world, about the impacts that we as humans have on the natural environment, things like climate change, plastic pollution, and lots of bad stuff. And I really felt that as an individual, I had a responsibility to do something about it. But actually in 2018, on the 1st of January, I was on a kind of New Year's Day walk along the beach with some friends and family, and we were talking about New Year's resolutions. And I didn't have one for that year, but I thought I'll hopefully come up with something that I can challenge myself to do in the year of 2018. And when we were on this walk along a lovely beach on the east coast of Scotland, which is where I'm from, I was kind of walking along and coming across lots of litter, plastic bottles, crisp packets, and kind of paraphernalia from the Hogmanay celebrations the night before. And we'd had Blue Planet just before that year, and I really felt like on the 1st of January, I felt this responsibility to think about how in the year of 2018 I could take on the challenge, a New Year's resolution of trying to be more sustainable. And in that year, I started to think a lot about my waste, how I could reduce my waste, reduce my plastic, and lower my impact on the planet. And as I started to do this, finding swaps around my house for different products and try to be a bit more sustainable, lots of people, friends and family, were asking me what I was up to and for advice, or where I was getting my new products from. So I decided to document my journey on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, on social media. And I came up with the name Less Waste Laura because I was trying to produce less waste. And my name's Laura, it was that simple. So 4 years ago now, basically, if I can do the maths right, I started this journey to thinking about living environmentally as an individual and sharing about that online. And over the past 4 years, that platform has grown. It's grown so that I'm not just doing things on social media, but I'm also getting involved in lots of campaigning work outside of the realms of social media with different businesses and charities and kind of community groups across the world sometimes, because we can do things remotely, but mainly in Scotland and in the UK. And one of the big pieces of work that I now do is a lot of work in the media. So speaking on the radio, I'm a regular on Sky News's climate show and really bringing in a different voice to talk about environmental issues. And it's not just plastic and climate change, but it's bringing it in and seeing how that intersects with other issues like fashion is one of the big ones as well. So I do lots of different things as part of my role, I guess, as Less Waste Laura, and fashion is a big one of them. It's something that lots of people are interested in and lots of people want to talk about. But also I do work for Tear Fund, and my last role, which is when Sue and I were in the same team, was our COP26 kind of coordinator. So I was looking at what we were doing for the big United Nations Summit coming to Glasgow, which is where I'm from and it's where I am now, it's where I live. And my new role at Tear Fund is looking at how we can further engage churches in climate change. So this is definitely the thing I'm passionate about, the topic that I love to speak about, and so it's great that I can come along virtually and chat to you guys a little bit about some of that work and what we can all do. The next question that Sue put in was, she must admit that she enjoys shopping and getting new things for her wardrobe. When it comes to fashion and clothes, buying it can seem expensive when it's ethical or sustainable, and she's not always sure where to buy things from. Maybe what's some of my advice? I guess to think about fashion, it's one of the biggest contributors to climate change as an industry, particularly fast fashion. And to give that into, I guess, a bit of context, the industry of fast fashion and fashion in general produces more carbon emissions than the international flight and shipping industry. So there's a huge amount of carbon that is involved in the manufacturing, production and shipping of our clothes. And then our clothes have a big impact on the world through the manufacturing, with lots of dyes and processes and water use and land use to grow some of the fabrics, but also the waste that is then produced. Lots of our clothes, when you look at the labels, are made from things like polyester, fibres that are made from plastic, which is a fossil fuel, but also something that doesn't break down. It breaks down over hundreds, if not thousands of years, and it can cause a lot of issues with microplastics, microfibres. So we know that it's not great. So we're trying to find a solution. What's the alternative? I know that when I'm looking for new clothes, I always try and think about an upside down triangle. So the top of the triangle, when I'm thinking about finding new clothes, the very top of that pyramid is, or base pyramid upside down, is what do I already have? What's already in my wardrobe? What are the things that I could wear? You might have a wedding coming up or a birthday dinner or something. Is there already something that you have in your wardrobe that you can wear? Below that kind of base, it's then, do my friends and family have something that I can borrow? My favourite place to shop is on my friends' Instagrams. So to go through what all my friends are wearing to parties and on holidays and ask them if I can borrow some of their things. And as you get further down this pyramid, you start looking into the more sustainable ways of getting clothes. The second-hand market is one of the biggest and fastest growing kind of parts of the fashion industry. And we can think about all the ways that we can get our clothes that aren't necessarily new, but are new to you. And so secondhand places like charity shops, but there's also lots of new online marketplaces. You might have heard of Depop, Vinted, or even some places like Facebook Marketplace and other platforms like that. So there's lots of ways that we can get our fashion secondhand that's more sustainable. Even thinking about mending, tailoring, picking pieces that we already have and making sure that they last a long time and are really versatile. There is, of course, other ways of getting things that are new or new to you. I absolutely love the new industry of renting clothes. It's funny, because I'm from Scotland, I feel it's not necessarily a new thing up here, because for years, men have rented kilts when it comes to weddings. That's always something I'm a bit annoyed about, because as a woman, I always felt I had to buy more and more clothes every time I went somewhere new. But here was all these guys just renting kilts for weddings. But the renting clothing industry is growing. Everything from renting occasion wear, designer occasion wear, all the way through to even renting kids' clothes and baby clothes, because I don't have any kids myself, but I've heard from lots of my friends and family that babies and children go through so many clothes at such a rapid speed, especially when they're very young, that you often don't get enough wears out of things before they've grown out of them. So the renting industry is something that you can also look into, and it can be more affordable. You can rent a designer dress or outfit, or it doesn't even need to be designer, but for a fraction of the price. And it's great for things like weddings and occasions, and other kind of high-end items that you maybe don't want to keep buying new. And then of course there is ethical and more sustainable brands, and these are great particularly sometimes for the hard to get secondhand items. I'm thinking pants and socks. There's lots of great ways that we can look at how we can avoid plastic and how we can look at more ethical and sustainable brands. There's a great app or website that you can look at which is called Good On You, and it's a great place to go just as a first initial search for the different brands that you might be looking at. And you can look on their website, Good On You, and find out a little bit more about the brands you love, find out where they're doing great, where they need to do a bit more work, and that'll hopefully help inform you about some of the choices that you make. It can be more expensive if you were to look at an ethical t-shirt versus a t-shirt from a high street or online fast fashion retailer. But the one thing I've definitely found when it comes to living sustainably in general, but particularly with fashion, is that actually the most sustainable thing is about slowing down the amount we buy, slowing down with the kind of fast fashion train that we're on. And by doing that, I've opted to buy less. I've opted to buy more secondhand. I've paid more to get things tailored and mended when they are broken. And by doing that, I'm actually saving money because I'm not buying as much stuff. And the stuff that I am buying, I'm extending the life of. And it's a really great way to be saving money in different places instead of just constantly buying more and more fashion. Tear Fund actually is doing a challenge in March. It's called the Great Fashion Fast, and it's to encourage people to take 10 items of clothing for the whole month of March, 10 main pieces, so you can still wear as many pants and socks as you want. But actually, it's to get people thinking about fashion. But through that, they did a survey, and it came out saying that since the 1980s till now, we've actually been buying 5 times as much clothes as we did back then because of the speed of things that we're going, this fast fashion industry. So it's really something to be thinking about, how can we extend the life of our clothes, avoid making it really expensive because we're still buying as much but from different places. It's actually about thinking differently around fashion. Another question from Sue is, I guess, around the idea of second-hand shops and this idea of what does it actually look like to be different from fast fashion? What is fast fashion? And this question about, don't people who are in low income countries need jobs who are often working in the fast fashion industry, and is making clothes a way for that? So I guess to clarify or to explain a little bit about fast fashion, it's really simple. It's fashion that is fast. I guess looking back in time, we used to have spring, summer collections. You would get a heap of new clothes that come out across the world, and then you would have the autumn, winter collection. So actually, looking back in time in history, there used to be 2 main points in the year where, particularly here in the UK or kind of in the western parts of the world, these 2 seasons would dictate the new fashion and the new styles that would come out. And these would be times where people might look to freshen up their wardrobe. But now, instead of having 2 seasons a year, we almost have 52 seasons with new clothes, sometimes coming out on a daily basis, if not weekly. And the speed that we are now producing clothes is lightning speed. And it means that we are doing this so quickly that not only does fashion come in quickly, it also goes out. And that is really fueling what we now call a disposable throwaway culture, where we buy clothes, they maybe aren't produced in the same way to the high standards that they used to be. They are made of different materials, and they also are a trend that goes out just as quickly as it went in. And so fast fashion is the complete opposite of what we used to have, which was slow fashion coming out twice a year, things made with a lot of conscious and intention to last a long time. Now our clothes aren't necessarily made in the same way within the same materials, and because they are so cheap, they often aren't made in with the same care. Not that individuals don't put care and love into their work, but more that they aren't built to last because they aren't built to last. The trend isn't meant to last that long. But to the point around the fast fashion industry globally is a huge employer, from people who are involved in making the materials through to making the clothes, manufacturing, producing, shipping, and then of course selling. And this is always one of the really contentious issues. If we are to move away from fast fashion, slow down, consume less, what does that mean for people, people's jobs, and holding people in jobs? I guess my main point is we should be aiming to build a fashion industry that is fair for everyone, that not just holds people in a job, but holds people in a good job, in a job that pays them well, in a job that is honouring and brings them everything that they need. There are story after story after story of individuals and communities who are mistreated within the fashion industry. And this is a big thing globally. You might recognise the story of the Rana Plaza disaster, where a factory, I think it was in Bangladesh, collapsed and all of the workers inside were harmed, and there was also fatalities, and there was no justice for those workers. There was no support system around them. It was an unsafe working condition on low wages, which ended up in a really sad situation. And that actually happened, I believe, in 2008. This was 10 plus years ago. And we still are in the same position now, where people are in these employment positions with no security and not a good wage. I don't think that's a good reason to keep the fast fashion machine going in the way that it's going, with lots of individuals and communities being exploited on the bottom, with a few individuals making lots of profit at the top on these kind of industries. And it's about finding a way that there is lots of room within the economy to make sustainable and ethical fashion part of the puzzle, and to also build up the secondhand market, and to build up, again, embracing tailoring and mending and the new industries that will hopefully bring. And I think it's about the need to change the whole industry and not just going along with the status quo, but actually shaking it up to find a better solution for everyone. The final question that Sue put was, what can we do in response to all of this? I think the first thing we can do is just sit and reflect and think about the fashion that we own, the fashion that we have and that we buy, and the way that we think about our clothing. I know that in the pandemic, so since January, February, March of 2020, I haven't bought any new clothes. I've not bought anything in even charity shops or in a secondhand online platform, because one of the things I've had a lot of time to do is think about what's in my wardrobe, think about the clothes that I have, realise that there's even still things inside my wardrobe that I haven't worn or have only worn a handful of times. This Tier Fund Great Fashion Fast Challenge, the survey that went alongside that actually surveyed individuals and found that over half of us, the majority of us, have something in our wardrobes that we've never worn before. So the first thing I'd love you to do is maybe even do an audit. Think about what's inside your wardrobe. Are there things that you can donate, give away, give a second life to someone else? Are there pieces that have been in the back of your mind that need to get mended to extend their life or tailored to fit you better? And think about the year. Think about things that you've got coming up. I know for me, I've got a few weddings, I've got a few different outings, birthdays, activities that are coming up. And those are occasions that you want to dress up for. You want to express part of your personality through fashion and the way that you look. And so thinking ahead about how you can do that in a more conscious, sustainable way. It can be something as simple as when I was in my final year of university, there was a ball for everything. There was the sports ball, graduation ball, your school's ball. And at the end of my fourth year, I actually had 4 university balls to go to. That was already expensive enough with all the tickets and things that you had to get involved with. But dresses was one of the big things that I was on the lookout for. And I actually had 3 friends, so there was 4 of us together who were all roughly the same size and clothing, and we were all going to the same events together. And we decided that actually between us, we'll all just buy one dress and then switch them around for each of the balls. It gave us a chance to maybe try a style that we wouldn't normally go for. It saved us a lot of money, and it also meant that a dress that might have only got one wear at least was getting a few more wears by somebody else. So it might be thinking about innovatively about how you can still maybe buy yourself something new or something secondhand that's new to you or rented, but also how we can just be changing up our lifestyle a little bit. Thinking about how we can be more sustainable through the fashion we wear. We can also be thinking about it in terms of our friends and family, thinking about our kids' clothes, the gifts that we give people. I recently had a friend who had a baby, and instead of buying new stuff when you're never really sure what they might need, what I did was I actually bought a voucher for an online children's renting clothing company. And I said, here's a voucher for you to use whenever you like. If you need things right now for the really tiny baby size and stage, or maybe you can keep a hold of it until there's an occasion that you might want to buy something fancier that you can rent, or maybe there's another point. But I even gave a gift that was a little bit different, but it was still a meaningful gift that would hopefully help them with something that they had coming up. So we can just be thinking about it differently. I've kind of mentioned it already, but Tier Fund is doing this Great Fashion Fast, and it's a challenge in March, so from the 1st to the 31st of March, and I'm going to be wearing only 10 items of clothing for the whole month. I'm going to be taking on the challenge. It's kind of like a fun way to raise awareness of fashion and impacts of climate change, and also do a bit of fundraising. But if you're even interested just about reading some more statistics and stories and impacts, or even taking on the challenge, you can go to tierfund.org/fashion, and you can look at some of the options that are out there and maybe take on the challenge. You can also find me on social media at Less Waste Laura. So if you ever had a question about, is this a good brand? What's an alternative to this? Do you have any advice for whatever? please just send me a message. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you might have, because I know it can be quite a daunting and big subject when you first start looking into it, but I'm very happy to help in any way that is possible. But hopefully that gives you a little bit of information about fashion, about the industry of fashion, and how we can be more sustainable as individuals, and then have a bit of a sphere of influence and change others' actions and be able to really push better to get more. Because ultimately what we want to do is make an industry, a fashion industry, that is fair for the planet and fair for all people who work in the industry and are impacted by the industry. And I believe it's possible. I believe we have answers and solutions out there. And as consumers, as individuals, we've got a big role to play. And we just need to embrace it and try to do that more. I'll be praying for you as you think about this topic and meet together and have more discussions. And I just want to encourage you in all that you're doing, because it's such a great thing to be thinking about. And I wish I could have been there in person, but it's great that I could even send this video message for you to play. And so thank you very much, Sue, for inviting me. And I hope that this has been helpful to aid some of the things that you're talking about. But I will say goodbye for now. Thanks.